Hello, I'm Jess, and today I'm joined by John Borden, Testo's product manager. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today. Today, John's here to talk to us about the Testo 417 vane anemometer. John's going to be introducing us to the Testo 417 and outlining its capabilities and applications. Before we talk about the Testo 417 vane anemometer, please could you give us an overview of what vane anemometers are and what they can be used for?
So, a anemometer is a device for measuring airflow. Think of a thermometer, which is for measuring temperature. Anemometer is for airflow measurement. And this is a vane anemometer. The vane part is obviously the bits we can see here, the vanes that move around. So it's a bit like a windmill. And what happens here, obviously the airflow through the vanes creates rotary motion. And then we have basically a sensor that is measuring that rotary motion. And from that, we can then measure airflow. As a velocity, so the speed going through, and also more importantly, if we know the size of the area that's measuring, the volume of airflow that's going through as well. So an anemometer is a device for measuring airflow.
And why do we need to measure these parameters?
Okay, so airflow is quite an important parameter. We always think of, again, things like thermometer and temperature measurement is important, but airflow is also vitally important. It can be from a perspective of the ventilation in a building. In industrial applications where you use another type of anemometer called a duct or hot wire anemometer for measuring airflow in large ductwork, that can be used in both large commercial applications in industry. So airflow is actually a vitally important parameter to measure as well.
Now, thinking about the Testo 417, could you tell us a bit more about it? The testing capabilities, what kinds of data you can gather, and what it can be used for, please?
Yeah, sure. So the 417 has been primarily designed around the testing of domestic and light commercial ventilation systems. Okay. So a typical application for the 417 is all familiar now with things like an extract fan in a room, be it a bathroom or a kitchen, where you're looking to extract the stale air and make sure you're taking the moisture and things like that away. So the 417 is a tool that be used for measuring airflow, typically at a vent or a grill. Okay. So with the device, obviously, normally you use this device with what's known as a set of hoods, which come as part of the kit, and the hood basically is capturing the air. So the hood clips onto here. You put the 417 up against the outlet, and what you're actually measuring then is if it's an extract air. Obviously, the air is being extracted from the room through the anemometer and through the grill. If it's supply air, i.e. fresh air coming in, it would be actually coming the other way, but the anemometer can read both directions. And what we're having on here, you obviously got a display, but also this is connected via Bluetooth to our Testo Smart app. And what we can see here, typically you've got the airflow temperature, the flow velocity, in other words, the speed of the airflow through here. And also, if we, within the app, we input into the app the actual geometry of the size of the duct, i.e. its size, what happens then is because we've got the flow velocity and we've told it the duct area size, it will actually calculate the flow volume. Okay. And this is vitally important because if you're looking at, for example, the UK market, we have quite strict controls on the ventilation in buildings, whether it's a domestic property or a commercial property. This goes right back to Part F of the building regs in the UK, which actually lay down guidelines for the amount of fresh air exchange rates. Okay. So what you're actually looking at here is being able to measure how much air is basically being taken out of a room or how much it's being circulated, and that directly feeds into the requirements of Part F in the building regulations.
And I was wondering if you could tell us a bit more about Part F, like what the regulations entail and the consequences of not abiding by them.
So within the Part F regulations is set down depending on the room and its use, whether it's in a domestic building, a kitchen, a bathroom. There are predefined rates that are expected for air exchange. And it's vitally important that anybody who's commissioning a building under Part F regulations uses a vane anemometer device or an alternative device to actually get those measurements on the airflow that they can then fill out if you like, the sign-off documents at the end to say that the building's ventilation system has been set correctly.
Bearing that in mind, who would you recommend the Testo 417 vane anemometer to? Okay,
so this device is really aimed at anybody who's either installing domestic ventilation systems or needs to test them. It could be somebody who's doing a sign-off procedure after a build. But there is also quite a growing market, because what we're seeing with properties now in the UK, we're looking for ever more energy efficient buildings.
Yep.
So in a lot of cases, we're sealing the buildings up incredibly well because of the building regs. The downside of that is, if you seal a building up completely and have no airflow, what happens then to the moisture in the buildings from people breathing out, normal activities, you're cooking? That moisture has to go somewhere. So it's vitally important with a modern building that the ventilation system could be looked at. And what we're seeing is a lot of new builds with what are known as MVHR systems.
Okay.
That's mechanical ventilation and heat recovery. And these buildings, typically in the rooms, the ceilings, they will have a grill, which is fresh air coming in, and another one which is extracting the stale air and taking some of the heat and recovering it as well. So a lot of buildings now have quite involved ventilation requirements. It's gone wildly away from just maybe having a simple extract fan in a bathroom or a kitchen. A lot of modern buildings, it's absolutely important and imperative that these MVHR and other sort of ventilation systems are set up correctly. So this device enables them to set the system up to balance the system and gives them the information they're going to require.
So are we thinking people like HVAC engineers or construction?
Yeah, it's a wide range. You've got your classic people involved in ventilation systems and installation, commissioning, but also, we're getting more and more people now who are looking to widen the portfolio of work they're doing. And basically anybody who's going to be involved in any form of domestic or light commercial ventilation should be using an anemometer of some sort.
And ventilation, is that to ensure that mould doesn't build up on the walls?
It's part of the aspect. If you think about what we were saying about the buildings, we're sealing them ever tighter from an airflow perspective. That's great from a energy efficiency. You're keeping all that heat in. But, we are living people. We breathe out water vapour. We do our cooking, the steam coming off pots and pans. If you've washed clothes, maybe you're bringing them in and putting them on air up. All that water vapour, that moisture has to go somewhere. And if you've sealed the building in so there's no airflow, what happens to it? Effectively, if you've got to the temperatures where you've got dew point, that water vapour will then condense on the walls.
Yeah.
And where you have then surface moisture on walls, you've got the perfect breeding ground for mould. And we know that mould growth and the problems that can have in buildings is a really hot topic at the moment.
It is, yeah. Considering the Testo 417 vane anemometers testing capabilities, where would you position it within the market?
Okay, so if we look at vane anemometers in a general perspective, you can buy very, very low-cost vane anemometers for less than £100. These are typically tools you would see not so much probably being used by proper ventilation engineers. These are devices that are hobbyists. You can even, hill walkers, for example, take them out to make sure wind speeds aren't maybe too high before they're going out walking, or people who are hiring things like cherry pickers to make sure, again, that the wind speed isn't too high. So yes, you can get very, very low-cost anemometers, but if you look at the lower-cost anemometers, typically a much smaller vane, you're not going to get any real level of accuracy. As a minimum, it's seen within the ventilation testing market, 100mm vane is the benchmark to get you any real high degree of accuracy.
Yeah.
The other thing to bear in mind is most 100mm vanes will come with some form of what we call capture hood as part of the kit. So basically it's a hood assembly that goes on beyond this that effectively matches the size of the grill you're testing, and the idea is you're capturing all the airflow through that vent. With a smaller vane, you're having to do like a timed average across a grill or an outlet, and that's going to give you much more inaccurate results. So 100mm vane with a capture hood is really the benchmark standard you expect for a proper ventilation engineer to use.
And are there kits available with the capture hood?
Yeah, so the 417, yes, you can buy it without the hoods, but most people would buy it with the kits that are available. We have two kits, kit 1 and 2. Kit 1 has two capture hoods. One is a square capture hood and the other one is a circular one for what are known as saucer or plate outlets. Okay. The only difference between that and Kit 2 is Kit 2 also introduces what's known as a flow straightener. One of the problems with vane anemometers you can get is if the grill or outlet is designed to create any sort of swirl or turbulence, and the reason they do that is to try and mix the air into the room, what happens is if you've got this turbulent air, that turbulent air as it swirls through can sometimes hit the blades at an odd angle and can actually give a bit of a misleading result. Yeah. So the idea of the flow straightener is it basically turns that turbulent air into a much straighter laminar flow, so that the airflow actually hitting the vane is much straighter, therefore your errors of measurement are actually reduced.
How is data displayed on the Testo 417?
So you've got a couple of options for data display. This, unlike our smart probes, does actually have a integral LCD display. And on here, you can see both the temperature, the flow velocity, and the volume flow. And you can also program up in the device for the characteristics of the outlet in geometry, so the size of it. The other option you have, because this device has Bluetooth, you can use the Testo Smart app. And we can see here, basically we've got display on here, but also we've got the same information being relayed across the Smart app. And if I actually create some airflow, you can see here,
oh yes,
we now get the actual information. So again, it's all about capturing the information made in a much more effective way. It's digitally. This information here can be put into the report. So for somebody who wants to actually report on the information, yes, they can actually use this without the Smart app and actually just take the readings down and write them down. Mm-hmm. But it's much better to actually get the digital reporting you get with the Smart app.
Could you give us an overview of the Testo Smart app? Because it can be used with other instruments, can't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Smart app we've got here, we have various drop-down options when you actually download the Smart app. It's a free app that runs on either an Android or Apple iOS system, downloadable from either the Play stores. It will run on a smartphone or a tablet. And what you have when you actually download the app is you have a number of different set measurement programs. Yeah. Some of these are very specific to certain requirements. So, for example, the 417 would probably normally be used with what's known as a volume, flow and outlet. So that is a very specific program designed just for this. Yeah. But the Smart app supports a wide range of Testo products. But you've got all these measurement programs you can use. But for example, here, we're just going to look in what we call basic view. And basic view is really simply just a basic information coming across from this device or another device that's shown on the screen. And with the basic view, you do have some options. So we can see here we've got the classic sort of numerical view. You're looking at the measured values in numerical terms. But also, if I use the button at the top here, we can click to what we call a graphical representation. So now what we're seeing is actually, it will show the data rather than numerical view. You're actually getting a graphing or trending. And again, this is data that's coming in. And in fact, we can see that behind this, if I go to the table, every second here, we've got measurement coming in from the device. So it's measuring the temperature, volume, and the airflow. And the idea behind this is once you've actually got the data, you can now just save that. And it will now actually bring the information in and say, do you want to build a report around that data? So you can see it's a very, very flexible and easy way to gather data from the instrument, but more importantly, to record that data if needed.
So I suppose the advantage for end users is the efficiency, the ease.
Yeah, your workflow, if you look at maybe manually having to record lots of results and put that down into a paper form or paper trail, it's very much easier to just get the instrument, take your readings, some of them are obviously sent across to the app automatically, freeze the readings you've got, and then put them into the report.
So how will investing in a Testo 417 vane anemometer benefit the end user?
Okay, so the first thing is it's the documentation aspect. We're seeing so many ventilation systems have been poorly set up over the years, forgotten about. It's too easy to just put an extract fan in or something like that and not actually document the end readings. Yeah. So we're seeing a lot of information in the press and the trade magazines about poorly installed ventilation systems. So if you really want to set yourself out or your company out against the other competitors out there, it's having a device like the 417 that is going to show that those measurements have been taken once the ventilation system has been installed. It's performing to the specification that would be expected of it and documenting those results to prove that your installation and work was of the right quality. And ultimately, it's making sure that the person is either living or working in the correct ventilated conditions.
And would you say the documentation aspect is the USP of the Testo 417?
Absolutely. With the link to the Smart app, particularly the fact that we can very easily do a digital document based on the measurements.
And is there anything else you want us to know about the Testo 417?
Yeah, just something that's very fresh and new. We've actually got an application within the app itself. One of the things we're finding, particularly on more the commercial ventilation systems, is if you've got lots of these ventilation outlets or the fresh air inlets, you have to balance the system. And again, we were talking about MVHR systems. There's an aspect where it's not just measuring at one point, you're measuring at multiple points and then balancing the airflow to make sure that each room is getting the correct amount of air exchange. This can be very, very time consuming to do these measurements manually. What we've now got in the app, if we've actually look here, we've actually got a measurement program that's called air balancing. And the air balancing app, what it allows you to do is multiple measurements with a target value. So you can actually say we set the target values and what we would expect the system to be performing to.
Okay.
And then you can go around the individual outlets and compare them to actually see what the real value is against target. So it actually speeds up the whole air balancing of a larger system to a much higher degree. If you're trying to do this manually with lots of toing and froing of measurements, this, in conjunction with the air balancing app, makes it much easier.
Yes, it's about that, like efficiency, flexibility, that sort of thing.
Absolutely.
And finally, if you were to sum up the Testo 417 vane anemometer in 3 words, what would they be?
Okay, smart, because of the connectivity to the app. Accurate, the 100mm vane is going to give you the most accurate airflow for the commercial and domestic ventilation market. And finally, just its ease of handling, the fact that you've got the easy setup either in the instrument or via the app.
Great, thank you. So I believe the Testo 417 vane anemometer is part of Testo's Compact Class series.
That's correct.
Could you tell us a bit more about that series, please?
Yeah, so the Compact Class range of instruments has really been designed around the sort of requirement for a HVAC professional. Yes, we have other products in the Testo market that sit at a lower price point, but they're typically what we would class almost like toolbox tools.
Okay.
Really, for a HVAC professional, you'd be wanting a certain level of accuracy and specification. So the Compact Class range of products encompasses that. So the 417 is part of that range, but we have devices in that range also for temperature measurement. We have them for ambient CO2, which has become a very hot topic, particularly post-COVID, with, again, part of the thing with air and airflow is making sure there's enough fresh air coming into buildings so you don't feel stuffy, people don't feel drowsy. So there's a Compact Class product called the 535 for measuring ambient CO2. There's also other anemometers in that range. If you're measuring airflow, not a grill or event, but actually within ductwork, you wouldn't use an anemometer like this because you can't physically really get into ductwork. So with that, you would have something like the Testo 425 or 416, which is a anemometer designed to go actually inside ductwork, much smaller. Enables you to take those measurements. So the Compact Class, this just being one of them, is a really flexible range of products. And obviously bear in mind that with the app, you can connect up to 6 devices to the app at any one time. So you could be using the 417, for example, for getting your airflow information. You could also have the Testo 535 to be gathering your information on ambient CO2.
Yeah.
And you could be using something like the Testo 625 to be looking at temperature and humidity. So it's about having a suite of instruments for the HVAC professional that offers a wide range of measurement options.
Yeah. Again, it's about that adaptability and efficiency, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yes. Thank you, John, for your time.
No problem.
That was really informative. I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, please look out for future videos with John. They'll be about other products within Testo's range. And remember to like and subscribe and share this video with anyone you think it might help. All the information about Testo's 417 vane anemometer can be found on our website, www.testo.co.uk.